Hi everyone, today I'm going to be providing an overview of the women's event at the first Junior Grand Prix event of the season in Courchevel, France. So one thing to know right off the bat is that we were missing a few notable skaters here. Because of the impact of COVID-19, the Japan and Russian skating federations announced earlier this year that they would not be sending skaters to this event. Specifically, the Japan Skating Federation said that because of pandemic-related travel restrictions, it would not be sending any athletes to any of the first three JGP events. And only a few weeks ago, the Russian Skating Federation announced that due to quarantine and vaccine requirements for Russian citizens entering France, it would not be able to send skaters to either of the first two stages, which are being held in Courchevel. The Russian skaters would have to quarantine for 10 days since they are unvaccinated. And so Sophia and Maria, the two Russian athletes who were supposed to be at this event, would have had to be off the ice for over a week before this major competition. The International Skating Union announced that they would be reallocating spots, which essentially means that we will be seeing future JGP events that have 4 or 5 women competing against each other, which is absolutely insane. And yes, they're competing against the rest of the field, but we all know that they're really competing against one another. So because of the lack of Russian and Japanese skaters, this made this event a real question mark, with a lot of skaters from smaller federations or skaters that are not as well known as the Russian skaters really excelling and doing well, placing well, and it seemed like there was just more attention on them than there would have been if the Russian and Japanese skaters had shown up. With that being said, the Russian and Japanese skaters, as well as skaters from other countries that could not compete due to COVID-19 restrictions, were definitely missed, and I'm really looking forward to seeing future JGP events where they will compete at. So another thing to know is that Courchevel, France is at a pretty high altitude, which is why the long program events for men and women were an absolute mess. Courchevel can reach as high as 8,983 feet, and for anyone who has been at a high altitude, you know that that often will cause dizziness, nausea, just general feelings of sickness. And so to run a long program in altitude, as a former skater myself, I know it is hell. So these skaters did a really great job pushing through it, but it's definitely something to note because there were a lot of falls and meltdowns and messy skates, and altitude could have been one of the factors that played a role there. And then lastly, because there was no JGP season last year, this was the first JGP competition since October 2019. For a lot of these skaters, they missed a JGP season. So for some of them, this would have been their third season. For others, perhaps last year would have been their first season, and now this season is their first season. But we saw a lot of newcomers as well, so it was definitely a competition with a mix of skaters that we haven't seen before, skaters that should have made their international debut a year ago, but it made for a really interesting and exciting competition. Okay, so now that that's over, let's dive into the short program. So winning the short program by a little under a point was Clare Seo, representing the United States. A lot of people said they did not know who Clare was before this competition or had never heard of her before. And Clare is actually the 2021 U.S. National Junior Bronze medalist. So we have heard of her, we know of her. She actually competed at Skate Milwaukee a few weeks ago, which was a competition that was used to determine JGP placements for the U.S. women. And she actually placed third, beating Lindsay Thorngren, who was also at this competition. So Clare has definitely been on my radar, although it is notable that I had not really heard of her before last season, and I think I saw on skating social media that she was training in Korea or might have even skated for Korea in the past. I'm really not sure how true that is. If anyone knows more, let me know in the comments. But that might explain why we haven't really seen much of her at lower levels at nationals. So Clare had a great short program. She skated clean and she landed a backloaded triple lutz triple toe combination. which was actually new since at Skate Milwaukee a few weeks ago, she had done the combination as the first jump in the program. So it was really great to see her upping her tech content here. Her footwork was spectacular. It definitely went semi-viral on Twitter. I was seeing people rain praises on it and retweet it, and it was really, really lovely. She has a great movement quality about her, really fluid on the ice, really listens to her music and actually skates to it, which we don't always see in the junior ranks, and it was wonderful to see her skate a clean short program for her first JGP competition. So in second place after the short program was Lindsay Thorngren, who's also from the United States. Lindsay has a really impressive domestic competitive resume. She was the 2020 U.S. Junior National Champion, 2019 U.S. National Intermediate Champion, and she actually competed on the JGP 2 seasons ago. She placed 8th in Poland. She actually competed at the 2020 World Junior Championships right before COVID hit. Unfortunately, she placed 26th there and didn't qualify for the long program, but she has definitely excelled domestically. She's been trying triple axels at competitions this summer, and she's really trying to put her name in the mix, I think, for that third, maybe dark horse Olympic spot. Obviously, there are skaters with a little bit more body of work who've been on the senior ranks for longer, but Lindsay's definitely going places. So in my opinion, it's unlikely that she will be placed on the Olympic team, but it is definitely possible. I think anything is possible during an Olympic season. Ice is slippery, so she's definitely someone to keep an eye out for. And I think she will also do really well in that strange post-Olympic season that always happens when a lot of skaters retire or take breaks. I think she really is going to be pretty dominant domestically. As I mentioned before, Lindsay skated on the JGP 2 seasons ago, so she is a little bit older than some of the other skaters here, and she actually competes as a senior domestically, but as a junior internationally. I see a lot of people who say that she skates with a blank face, that she looks like she doesn't want to be skating, that she doesn't really listen to her music or skate to the music. And I think her team's aware of this. She is working with Benoit. He choreographed her programs, and she's been working with him to improve her artistry and her commitment to her choreography. I've definitely seen improvements, but I think like any junior skater, she has a long way to go, and I think she has a lot of potential to improve in that department. And speaking of artistry, in third place after the short program was Kaiya Ruiter from Canada. Kaiya, like Lindsay, has also competed on the JGP. She competed in the 2019 to 2020 season, and she really was the standout for me in this competition. I think her love of skating, her choreography, her interpretation of both her programs was really, really lovely, and I'm sold. I'm on the Kaiya Ruiter train. She is eligible for the Olympics this year by, I think, 6 weeks. She's 15 years old, and that position will probably be given to Maddie if Maddie skates clean. But Kaiya is definitely in the mix, and as I mentioned earlier, anything can happen during an Olympic season, but she did really, really fantastic here. I know some people were not huge fans of the music. I personally love Sia programs, most notably because when I think of Sia, I think of Wakaba's Sia program, but it was a really solid showing from Kaiya. So in fourth after the short was Korean skater Seoyeon Ji, who also skates in Colorado along Clare Seo. Tammy Gamble is her coach, and Seoyeon also, like Kaiya and Lindsay, competed in the 2019 to 2020 JGP season. She actually did very, very well. I remember her having some really great performances. She placed 4th and 6th at her events, so it was great to see her return and skate a solid program. She skated to 2 warhorses, actually, Dance Macabre in the short and Rachmaninoff in the long, and I thought they were okay programs. I think as the season progresses, she'll probably become more comfortable with them. One skater I was really, really excited to see compete here was her Korean teammate, Ahsun Yun, who had a stellar performance at Korean Nationals this past year and is the current senior national silver medalist. She beat Hyein Lee, Young Yu, Unsu Lim. So Ahsun is definitely one to watch out for. She has these incredible floating jumps that just leap across the ice. They're really, really beautiful, fast, incredible jumps. And I love her short program. It is a piano cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. And her dresses are beautiful, as the Korean women's dresses are always beautiful. But she was someone who I was really looking forward to seeing. Last year, she had a beautiful Star Wars program that I still watch at least every 2 months. So again, really excited to see her here. Unfortunately, she popped her combination in the short program. It was a backloaded triple lutz triple toe. And in the junior ranks, even if she had jumps planned after the lutz toe, she could not have tacked on a combination to that jump, because in the junior ranks there is a required jump, and this year the required standalone jump is the double or triple flip. So she lost a ton of points there and ended up 10th after the short, but I had a feeling she would claw her way back up in the long, and that's what she ended up doing. A few honorable mentions that I wanted to include are Noelle from Poland, who was 5th after the short, had a really nice solid skate, and was really thrilled and astounded with her score. And it's always really nice to see those moments in the kiss and cry. I also discovered a skater I had never heard of before, Jana Jyrkinen from Finland, who supposedly is part Russian, which is kind of interesting. She had a lovely Ripon Lutz toe loop combination. And I did notice that she did the Kamila Valieva power pull in between her Lutz toe in her combination, which I've definitely been seeing more of recently at Junior Russian Test Skates. I have to say, I thought I saw at least 4 or 5 girls doing that power pull technique, and I'm really not sure what's going on there. I really hope that this does not become a staple in skating, because it just looks so forced, and it looks like the skaters are really not using their legs to jump. They're trying to use velocity that they're generating from that foot as opposed to proper technique. So I guess we'll see if that continues. But one thing that I wanted to mention about her, but I thought she had a really lovely short program. Which is ugly! Another short program that I really appreciated was Regina Garcia de Leon Saab from Mexico. She skated to Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. Her program components, her artistry, her attention to detail in her choreography is really spectacular. I really, really enjoyed her performance. And even though her technical arsenal is not equivalent to the top women in this field, I think she has a lot of potential, and I will definitely be keeping an eye out for her at future competitions. She actually worked with Sergey and Daniel when they went to Mexico a few months ago to work with skaters. They were actually at her rink, so hopefully she will be, improving for the near future, and she was definitely a standout who I wanted to mention. She also reminded me of Satoko a little bit, because Satoko skated to Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence in, I think, her last JGP season. It was the season she placed 4th at Worlds. That was a beautiful program. I still think about that short program today. It was just so excellent. But the fact that Regina reminded me of Satoko was definitely a positive note in my book. Okay, so on to the long program. So Lindsay Thorngren won the long program and won the competition overall by about 4 points. She skated to music from The Queen's Gambit. She actually had a triple axel on her planned elements sheet, but went for a double axel, was going for a clean program, which I think was a good strategy here. And she actually made a small mistake on her triple loop, which was supposed to be a triple loop, triple toe combination. So she added a triple toe to the last jump in her program, a triple sow cow. As I mentioned earlier, these skaters are skating at high altitude. So that was very, very impressive to see. And again, just evidence of her training and her impressive technical arsenal. I do have to say, though, the voiceovers, the sound effects, definitely not my cup of tea. We need to take a moment to talk about voiceovers and sound effects in skating programs because Lindsay was skating to music from The Queen's Gambit, and I personally do not want to hear the sound of a car accident at the beginning of a figure skating program. And that's what I was getting when Lindsay was skating. To each their own, right? But to me, voiceovers where people are saying they want to play chess, sound effects like sirens, car accidents, glass shattering, explosions, whips being cracked, which are all sound effects, by the way, that I've heard in skating programs from international junior and senior competitors. Personally, I don't think that they have a place in a skating program. I have yet to hear a sound effect that has been done effectively because typically they just come off as gauche and they just take me out. But overall, I thought Lindsay did a really solid job to win her first international competition in 2 years. That's very impressive. And she said she's not sure which JGP she'll be going to next. So I guess we could potentially see her next week at Courchevel again. I'm not really sure because she was also on the entry list for a future JGP competition that I think has 4 Russian skaters. And if I were USFS, I would definitely want to place her elsewhere in a different competition where she'll have the ability to place higher and not get buried in the standings. Kaiya Ruiter ended up second in the long program and second overall. Again, I am part of Kaiya's fan club after this competition. She skated to music from Mulan, and I think it really suited her skating style and her performance. I want to take a moment to give a shout out to her footwork. Her footwork was amazing. I think I watched that footwork sequence at least 3 or 4 times.
No, I don't think you understand. I'm obsessed.
It was perfectly choreographed to the music, to the lyrics of the song. So the footwork sequence, she was performing to a Christina Aguilera song from the new Mulan live action movie. And typically, as much as I like Christina Aguilera and her vocal runs and belts, sometimes it doesn't always work in an arena. It can just come off as very loud and screechy, but the song was a little bit toned back, which was good. But also Kaiya was just really making it work. She was showing the drama, the passion you need for a Mulan program, and I was definitely feeling it. It was a really great performance, and in winning the silver medal here, it was, I think, the first time in 8 years that a Canadian woman has medaled on the JGP. 8 years ago, I believe Gabby Daleman won a medal, so really, really exciting to see her do well here, and then also to see a bright future for Canadian figure skating as well. Also quickly wanted to mention that David Wilson choreographed her long program. For those who don't know, David is a choreographer who's worked with many well-known skaters, including Yuzuru Hanyu, Yuna Kim, Rika Kihira, Jeremy Abbott. He just did a really great job. So coming in 3rd overall, but 4th in the long, was Clare. She had a really solid performance. It's tough to skate last after skaters before you skate clean program. So Clare really fought through her program. She ended up with a few under rotations, which caused her to be 4th in the long. So that's definitely something that she and her team will have to work on and clean up. But again, really promising skater and a strong start to her season. In 3rd in the long, but 4th overall was Seoyeon, and she had a really great performance, just like her short. Skated clean, and was kind of surprising to see such 2 solid performances have her off the podium. That just shows how competitive some of these top ranks at the junior level can be. And Ahsun's placement really shows that. As I mentioned, she was 10th after the short, clawed her way back up to 5th overall with a 5th place free skate, and she was almost clean in the long, fell on a triple Lutz in the second half. But it just goes to show that you can be a really talented, beautiful skater, but one mistake and that can really set you back. So she is slated to skate next week at Courchevel again, and hopefully she will have the combination in the short program and redeem herself. I did want to mention that Yana and Noelle, who had placed 5th and 6th in the short, they ended up having meltdown skates, just not their best showings. I think they each fell 3 times and just had some technical mistakes, and whether that was due to nerves, altitude, something else, it was disappointing to see, but hopefully they've learned from this experience and do even better at their next international competition. So overall, this was a really exciting competition and I think a great start to the JGP season. I will say that the scoring did seem what some people would call conservative. I think other people would call fair. The technical caller was definitely calling under rotations, calling jumps on the quarter, edge changes on jumps. They were seeing them and it was showing up in protocols, and we do not always see that in competitions with senior skaters or with skaters who have more pristine reputations. So it was notable that we were seeing that, and I'm curious how that will impact who will be at the JGP Final. From what I understand, they will be using a different qualification system for the JGP Final. I'm not sure if the International Skating Union has announced what exactly that will be. I haven't been able to find anything definitive, but it seems like it will be based off of scores, which means if the technical panel and judges at future JGP competitions are a little bit less conservative with their scores, I think that's going to result in a JGP final with maybe all Russian skaters, or maybe, 5 Russian skaters and 1 Japanese skater. We will see, but hopefully the judging is pretty consistent among all JGP competitions leading up to the final. I personally left this competition feeling hopeful for the future of skating. As I mentioned before, the post-Olympic season can be a strange one in which skaters who are less well known really pop up and skate to their highest potential, and in the absence of other more senior skaters or other skaters who have retired, they excel. So I'm thinking that these skaters who are here, who will be transitioning to seniors next year after the Olympics, I'm thinking that they have a really great shot at medaling at international competitions and doing really well. So if you want me to review future JGP competitions or future skating events, let me know in the comments. And also, if I mispronounced any skaters' names here, feel free to correct me in the comments as well. I did look for different competition videos with skaters' names pronounced by different commentators, but for me, it's always a little bit difficult to figure out which commentators are correct, which are not. So if you know definitively that I pronounced a name wrong, feel free to correct me so that I can respect the skaters fully in future videos. But thank you for watching, and I will see you next video.